Hello, welcome to the last video class of cross-cultural management for the trimester 6 along with the last activity as well. So today we'll be seeing some important concepts under module 5. With that we'll be completing our video class sessions and thereafter we'll be joining for any online sessions based on any further discussions required for further topics. Now this particular video class will have an interesting activity also included as part of some important concepts in module 5. So let me remind you, it would be an activity which happens amidst the class. So I hope you're all geared up for the class. Right, so now in today's class we are seeing the concept of how culture would have an impact on financing strategies, or culture could have an impact on finance decisions or investment decisions. Now, I'm sure we are, as Indians, we are all aware, we have seen many decisions being taken based on what time it is, what season it is, or what time of the month or what period it is. So depending on the month or the season or the time, depending on whether it is considered auspicious, a particular decision, investment decision is made. So as Keralites, we are all very clear that Chingam is considered to be an auspicious time for any auspicious things to happen. So anybody would plan their housewarming, for marriage, for some purchasing a new car during that particular time. And it is quite unlikely that somebody would buy a vehicle during the monsoon season. And Akshaya Tritiya is yet another very important day where a lot of individuals would prefer buying gold on that particular day. Again, it is attached to some customs or traditions or some beliefs. Now, this should not make us conclude that such impact of culture on finance or investment decisions are akin to Indians alone or akin to Indian culture alone. Now, let's talk about some popular brands of mobiles like the Samsung or Nokia. Now, these two companies will never have the number digit 4 included in their models. They will try as far as possible not to have the digit 4 included in their models. So models are depicted or described using some other digits apart from the number 4. Now this has got a lot of significance on the cultural impact. The reason being, number 4 is considered by many of the Asian cultures as not so fortunate, or it is considered to be an unfortunate number. And for that reason, any number 4, any product which will be signified with the number 4 is totally avoided. Now Nokia S360 platform, for instance, once they had the third version, the third model, immediately they skipped to the 5th version rather than going for the 4th one. Again, this has got something to do with the belief that the digit 4 is not appropriate, or it is an unauspicious number. Now similarly, again, this should not make us think that this is part of Asian culture. We will talk about some interesting examples of Western market as well. Now in stock market, every Friday 13th, now every 13th when the date is 13, and if it happens to be a Friday, normally the kind of transaction that happen through the stock market is substantially reduced. Yes, it is a fact. It has been proven over a period of time that if the date is 13th, on that particular day, there are minimum transactions happening. And coupled to it, if it happens to be a Friday the 13th, any month for that matter, there will be limited transactions happening. Now this again has got a bearing on the age-old belief that the number 13 is not auspicious at all. And for this reason, many hotels in the Western markets, in Western countries, do not have a room number with 13 as a digit. Now, so this gives us a clear-cut idea as to how much of importance culture has got on financing decisions or investment decisions. So I hope you are convinced about the impact of culture. Now let me just give you one survey result, or let me just brief you on one finding which will further make us convinced as to why studying culture or studying the impact of culture is so very important. Now, there was a study which was conducted by New York University and Princeton University, where this particular survey included individuals both from New York as well as Shanghai. And this survey was in the form of, they were given some virtual money, and this virtual money they were asked to invest in stock market. But then not much of the previous data was made available to them. The only information that was shared with the participants of the survey, which included people from New York and which also included people from Shanghai, the only information shared with these two set of participants for the survey included the trend that was being shown, which means the trend of the stocks. So based on the trend, they will have to make the decision. So some stocks are doing extremely well and some stocks are not doing all that well. And they had to, based on past trend, they will have to make a decision. So what happened is, based on the trend, the New Yorkers, they went ahead with the decision that certain stocks which were showing a continuous appreciation in value, they had invested more on such stocks. Unlike the people from Shanghai who felt this appreciation has been happening for quite some time and chances are it is going to show a decline. And for this reason, they didn't invest too much on that particular stock because they were scrupulous about its further showing in appreciation. So this gives a clear-cut understanding of the drastic differences in culture. The first culture where the appreciation was looked at with a lot of confidence and it was expected to continue. Unlike the second culture where it was seen as a temporary one and they were skeptical about it further showing a similar increase in the positive direction. So this survey result should give us a clear-cut understanding as to how cultural impact on the thinking of an individual, how culture would have an impact on the thinking or the kind of decisions an individual makes, even in the finance domain. So I hope you're very clear on that. Now with this, we move ahead with the activity as promised. Now the activity that we are doing based on module 5 concepts, let me remind you, it will have to be based on the studies and findings by Trompreneurs, Squats, Hofstede, Edward Hall, Globe Study. So are you all set for the activity? Now let me just share with you what the activity is all about, and I'll also be sharing some important instructions to participate in the activity. So the first thing includes you need to be among the first few individuals who see this particular activity in this particular video class, and then you will have to report back with the right answers to my WhatsApp number. You can send it as a PDF attachment to my WhatsApp number. So based on who is sending first and who is having the highest number of right answers, the winner will be selected. I hope the rule of the activity is very clear to all. So let us move on to the activity. Now, here before I tell you what needs to be done, there is two set of aspects here. So on the left hand side you have factor. You have factor on the left hand side. On the right hand side you have cultural variable or cultural dimension. Now as I mentioned in the previous slide, whatever answer that you write for this cultural dimension, which happens to be the activity, it will have to be based on the studies by Hofstede, Hall, Squats, Globe Study, Trompreneurs, right? And it should be with respect to the factor mentioned here. So factor, the first factor, quality of the banking system. That is the first financial factor that is mentioned here. So based on this factor, if the quality of the banking system is attached a lot of importance, what dimension variable are you talking about? Based on any of the study, you will have to select any one variable which would best describe this particular factor. Now for the purpose of making it easier for you, there are 26 questions that are included. Now to make it a little more easier for you to understand or comprehend what the activity is all about, the first one we are going to do it together. Now, quality of the banking system. Quality of the banking system is the first factor mentioned, which means there is a lot of importance attached to the quality of the banking procedures, or how the banks are being monitored and run or operated, which means you will have to identify one cultural dimension. So one very good cultural dimension that best describes this particular factor is feminine. So the answer here is feminine. So you might have thought of some other cultural dimension already. You may include that, provided you're convinced that this is one right dimension associated with this particular factor. So we have done one factor together. Remaining 25 statements, you will have to do it based on the activity that we have just done, based on the exercise that we have just completed. So the first slide gives you culture and finance. Now you may pause this particular video, finish with this slide, and then move on to the second slide to have access to the remaining questions. So now let me remind you, starting with statements from B up to Z, you will be answering based on one cultural dimension that you feel best matches with that particular factor. Now the first slide, statements B to K, is based on impact of culture on finance decisions. You may pause the video here, start writing the answers. You need not mention the factors. Make sure the statement number is put correctly. The alphabet is put correctly, and then the corresponding answer can be written. Now the second slide, starting with statement L, which should be written in continuation to the previous slide answers. Now this is on corporate governance, how culture would have an impact on corporate governance. So let me just give you a briefing on what corporate governance is, which I'm sure you would have already come across this particular concept. Now corporate governance is ensuring that there is greater transparency, greater accountability that is being maintained to all the stakeholders, amongst the stakeholders and to all the stakeholders. Now, if you're talking about an organization displaying higher levels of corporate governance would ensure the information is kept transparent and they are accountable to the different stakeholders they interact with on a regular scale. So that is corporate governance. And under corporate governance, impact of culture on corporate governance, we have statements L, M, N, O, P. And each of these statements you will have to associate with one cultural dimension that best matches with that particular factor. Once again, let me remind you, you're allowed to pause your video. Now, continuing with corporate governance, again we have another set of statements, QRS. Now, this is based on corporate governance once again, on the market efficiency aspect of corporate governance. Again, the rule holds one and the same. You will have to identify one cultural dimension. So keep writing, keep pausing the video if required. The next slide, again, questions, statements T, U, V, W. It is related with corporate governance once again, the ownership concentration of corporate governance. So based on this, each of these statements T, U, V, W, you will have to identify one correct cultural dimension. Right, so let me just give you a quick briefing of corporate governance. Now, under corporate governance, you had three different sessions. So, corporate governance, under the session of accounting, you had statements L to P. Similarly, under the second heading of corporate governance, which is market efficiency, corporate governance is also about market efficiency, which includes statements Q, R, S. And the third aspect of corporate governance, which is ownership concentration, which includes statements T, U, V, W. So far we have seen impact of culture on financing decisions. We have also seen impact of culture on corporate governance. Now the last concept included as a part of activity, impact of culture on corporate ethics. Now in order to answer the statements X, Y, Z, which includes the last three statements in the activity, let me just give you a briefing on what this ethical framework is all about. So corporate ethics includes three theories based on which organizations or culture would be oriented at. The first culture being consequential theory. The first ethical framework being consequential theories. Now, consequential theories are cultures or organizations which are oriented at what is the outcome that is being generated, which means I'm sure you would have heard of what is called the utilitarian approach. Now, utilitarian approach is for the good of the majority, for the good of the majority. So that is called a consequential theory. So any decision that is being taken should be taking into consideration the good of the majority, hence the utilitarian approach. So if the culture is based on consequential theories, accordingly you can identify one particular cultural dimension. Now statement Y, rule-based theories. A culture, an organization which emphasizes on rules, hard and fast rules which are set or norms which are set based on which all major decisions are taken, including the ethical decisions. Then you call it rule-based theory. So in such a culture, if there is an adherence to the rules or norms which are set, then it is considered an ethical decision. That is what rule-based theories mean. So you'll have to identify one particular cultural dimension which relates better with this particular ethical framework. And the last statement or the last ethical framework being cultural theories. Now, according to this theory, organizations or cultures which believes in cultural theories, they would make decisions based on what is the ongoing customs or ongoing beliefs in that particular locality, which means the decisions would vary based on the markets, depending on the location, depending on the kind of beliefs that exist in that particular area or in that particular location. So identify one particular cultural dimension with respect to the cultural theories. With this, you would successfully complete your activity on Module 5. So this being the last activity, I hope that there will be a lot of participation from a lot of students in your batch, and even the other batch if somebody else is watching this video class. And the last activity we had a very good number of participants for the previous activity, including some winners like Sajan, Anne, Vinny, Ashwati SR. And we had a lot of participants as well along with the winners. Now for this activity, hoping we will be, I'll be having an overwhelming response from your end, and I promise you that you will be having some amazing rewards reaching you. And if any question in this particular slides that I've shared based on culture, finance, culture and impact of culture and corporate governance, impact of culture and ethical decisions, corporate decisions or ethical decisions, any doubt you have, feel free to reach across to me in my WhatsApp number. I can clarify that particular statement for you. Because if it's not legible, you can always get back to me. So remember, the first few participants who would reach with the right answers based on the time they are able to reach, the first participants, and based on right accuracy of the answers, the winners are going to be finalized. There will be 3 winners being selected. So wish you the very best, and being the last video class, let me just remind you of a few suggestions I have put forward during the online class. To summarize all those suggestions, I am just quoting Leo Tolstoy. So if you want to be happy, be. What does that mean? That quote, what does it mean? So to be genuinely happy, there is only one person who can help you out. And who is that one individual? If you want to be genuinely happy, that one individual is yourself. So if you want to be happy, you will have to make a choice. You will have to make the decision to be happy. You will have to find happiness in the smaller, simpler things and maybe the larger things as well. Similarly, if you want to be sad, there is nobody else who could make you sad. You will have to make a decision that I'm going to be sad. So ultimately, your happiness lies within you, and it is your decision which would ultimately create that huge difference. So wishing you the very best in life, looking forward to greater interactions with your batch, although officially we are completing our syllabus, trimester 6 syllabus, looking forward to some real good interactions, both in the professional realm, and if I could be of some help in your career growth, I'm always there. Counting on or looking forward to those interactions. Wishing you the very best in life. Take care, all of you.